Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm reviewing a book, The Memory of Love by Aminatta Forna. So I think reading this book has been quite challenging because as someone who's now living on the memories of love ever since I became a widow, I saw the title, it really captured me. I was like, oh, probably we might have something in common with this book. So that's how I decided to give it a read, to give it a try, and so I decided to read it. And reading it has really been quite, should I say, therapeutic? I think it has been quite therapeutic. And that the setup of the book was in hospital in Freetown, immediately when the government declared the end of an 11 years civil war. So when they just declared an end to that war, that's how, that's more like the depiction of the narrative of the book. The book actually is centered on three men. There is Elias Cole, who was a professor, an academic professor, and then there is Adrian Lockhart, who was a psychotherapist, you can say psychiatrist, from London, and then there's also Kai Mansaray, who was an orthopedic surgeon. And so it is in the triangle of these men that a narrative is written or a story is told. You know how they handled them, how they handled their lives after the war. And so we see Professor Elias Cole was a professor in the war or during the time of the war, and we see him giving his side of the story, even though he would keep some things to himself so that it doesn't look that bad. But then he gives his account of the war. He tells his story, his experiences of the war, his regrets and his love, everything, all the things that he had experienced in the war. And then we also look at Adrian Lockheed, who comes in to serve the people, to help the people who were traumatized by the war, because we all know when somebody goes through something traumatic, it leaves them with some effects. Some people have depression, some people have anxiety, and I think most commonly it's the PTSD. And then we also see Kai Mansaray, who was an orthopedic surgeon, who was in the midst of the war as everything was happening. He was there trying to serve the people, and he also experienced some traumatic things that he never wanted to talk about. And so there are a lot of things that he is harboring in his heart, and he is really trying by all means to live, to push himself through every day. Adrian and Kai, they become friends from Kai's past. They resurface in Kai's life, the love of his life, Neneva, but then she had even changed her name. She came as Mama K, as a musician. And so these people were so much in love in their university days, but they could not take their love further because of the political upheavals and also other things that just came in their way. And so they lost touch and they went their separate ways. And now Kai, meets this person after all these years, and he is now conflicted because at that particular time this woman, the love of his life, is now dating his friend Adrian. And so Kai couldn't really, tell Adrian to say, I used to date this one, or I had a past with this person, and it just goes on like that. And all these, struggles, the love, the traumas, the everything, we see how these people would just push themselves every day. And through the lives of these three men, we see how, how their lives are just like interconnected. Like we see how Adrian, employs a number of techniques just in trying to help these people up. And because Adrian became a friend to Kai, who was traumatized, who had a lot of traumatic memories, a lot of things that were just pulling him down, we see how he employs things like psychoanalysis techniques in just trying to to access his tormenting memories and to see how Kai could actually be helped. After everything, we see how Kai started to open up a little bit, and we see how he had healed to some degree, even though not fully healed, but at least he had somewhat healed. Reading reading the book, I think I could so much relate with the traumatic events of the characters. So I think it's a book that just brings out a lot of things. It was quite a busy book. It really brings out quite a lot of things. And maybe to just make mention of the themes in the book, it was about friendship, understanding, effects and scars of the past, dreams, lost love, and trauma. It was the story of the war, story of the memory of love. And so I think reading this book, I could really relate to a number of things. I could relate to a number of things in the book, and there are a number of things that really stood out for me in the book. One, I was able to understand the history of Sierra Leone better, because I think Sierra Leone is one of the countries that I haven't really read so much about that country, even in history. So reading it in the book, was quite informative. It was quite enlightening, and I also liked the detailed writing style of Aminatta Forna. It was full of vocabulary, and I really liked that. And I also enjoyed the voices of the characters. The way they were very clear, and also just the accuracy in the way she would just bring her points across. I really enjoyed those facts. And maybe I don't know if I should say spoiler or on the spoiler part, I think women's voices were not really loud. They were fairly silent, and I kept asking myself, where are the women? Where are the women? But I believe maybe it was intentional. If we were to give a rebuttal to that, maybe the author did it intentionally to just bring out the male characters, because that's where the storyline was actually based on. So I don't know, but I thought that the women voices were not really loud. And also I think the first 120 to 150 pages, they were quite difficult. I should say those pages were really difficult. They switched perspective a lot, and it was that kind of thing where the author just takes you out of your comfort zone and just puts you there, and just requests you to dance to her tune. So I'm just happy that I didn't give up on the book, because it was quite an interesting read. Yeah, but then that's it. But generally the book was quite a good read, and I really like the way she addresses the topics of trauma, because these are things that people don't talk about. It's so real. Like, these things are really real, and when you find someone who really talks about it openly in a book, you'd really I really appreciated that, because I could relate to most of the things that the people went through. A civil war is really a devastating thing, and so trying to recollect your life after such a traumatic thing is really difficult. You push yourself through every day, and personally I was able to relate to most of the things that Aminatta Forna put in the book. And so I would rate the book 4.5 stars out of 5. I would give the book 4.5. I enjoyed the book, though the first 150 pages were really difficult, but all in all, the book was really an interesting read. And I think we should normalize talking about trauma. We should really normalize talking about depression, talking about anxiety, these things that really people don't talk about. We should really normalize, find platforms so that people can really start to talk about these things. So I really enjoyed reading this book. Aminatta, kudos, you really did a good job. And so thank you so much for watching after this fight. Please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, share this video. See you again in my next video. Goodbye.